Yo, what's up, everyone? Today, going to be talking about kind of a cool idea that I've been thinking about for a while. That has to do with the psychedelic aspect of everything that I talk about. I didn't make any videos yesterday because I didn't get that much sleep, and then I went and worked like a long day. Like I only got like 5.5 hours of sleep, and then I went and worked like a long day, and I got home at like 10:30 or something, 10, and I thought about hopping on for a minute, even to do a short one, and I just said I'll do two today instead. So I'm gonna try to do another video later when I get off work. But anyways, so the topic of today's discussion is modern shamanism, and it's this idea that I've been thinking about because as I got into psychedelics, I over time you learn a lot about the different, as they call them, psychonauts that are involved in the history, and something appeared, or that I noticed. I don't know if other people have noticed this, but there's like this series of artwork done by a guy called Nicholas Rosenfield, and he did like all these different famous psychonauts. So like Carlos Castaneda, John C. Lilly, Sid Barrett, Nicholas Sand, Maria Sabina, Neil Cassidy, Myron Stolaroff, Sidney Cohen, Jean Lorraine, and I would also add to that list Alexander Shulgin. I wanted to make sure oh yeah, his name, he also goes by Sasha. I was going to call him Sasha. But anyways, Alexander or Sasha Shulgin. He also deserves to be mentioned. All these people are people that you could look up and learn a lot about. In particular, I got Carlos Castaneda's book, The Teachings of Don Juan, and in this book he's talking about I only read it once, and I forget if it was, I think it must be Carlos Castaneda who went and was learning from Don Juan, but I'm not sure if he was writing it about someone else or a fictional story. I like I said, I only read it once, but the thing that jumped out to me was in the story of Don Juan, there was this concept of like that when he would go on these mescaline trips, that he wasn't supposed to necessarily be telling Don Juan, the shaman, what he saw, and Don Juan didn't want to be telling him like what he should, like what to think about what he saw. And so it started this idea in my head about how shamanism is about seeking knowledge without a master, and finding truth, without deferring to the authority of someone else. Like if every time you think about something or try to have an idea, you defer to the authority of someone else, then you're not free. And so I mean, and you look at well, I'll wait to get to that till later. But anyways, so yeah, I recommend, I'm going to read through some of these because I recommend looking into these people before I get to the part about what I consider modern shamanism. I recommend looking into all these people if this is sort of something that you're into. So Carlos Castaneda became famous as the author of a series of books, starting with The Teachings of Don Juan in 1968, supposedly relating his training in shamanism by a Yaqui sorcerer. Okay, so for sure, it was him actually writing. The books include experiences with several drugs, including peyote, Jimson weed, and mushrooms. They were considered true-to-life anthropological reports at first, and even earned him a PhD from UCLA. Castaneda's books are now generally considered fiction. John C. Lilly, a man who lived and breathed the meaning of psychonaut, the inventor of the isolation tank, which deprives all senses of stimuli while the user floats in the warm water, and a pioneer in dolphin research. Lilly was also famous for taking frequent and heroic doses of ketamine, LSD, and other drugs in his endless quest to explore consciousness. And I want to go back. Just because Castanada's books are now looked at as as fiction, I don't think that's necessarily a reason to write them off. Like, I would need to look into that more as to why people consider his books fiction. I remember when I was reading the teachings of Don Juan, it was whether it was fiction or not, it wasn't like bullshit, you know. He was talking about the way things actually were. I mean, from the way that they collect and find peyote in the wild, to the way that they had the ceremony, and to the way that he was supposed to interpret the knowledge on his own. Like, I don't think any of that stuff is necessarily changed by the fact that the stories might be fictional that he told of the trips. And not only that, I've heard also other times, like in South American shamanism, I've heard that there are like symbolisms and things that are talked about and commonly known about. But at the same time, I think there is also that sort of tradition of that, you're going on your own journey, and the things that you're learning are for you. And it's like, you're not necessarily supposed to tell people like, oh, this is what my trip meant, and this is this is now the truth, and you should believe it too. It's more like you're supposed to extract whatever wisdom you can from your own experiences, and then share the wisdom. So it's like, you don't want other people trying to interpret what your trip meant or anything like that, and or telling you what your trip meant, and so you don't tell them about it. You extract wisdom, and then tell them to go on their own journey. But anyway, so the next one is Syd Barrett. He was the founding member of Pink Floyd and served as the band's lead singer, guitarist, and writer in its early years. Due to increasingly erratic behavior and mental instability, he left the band in 1968 and never returned. His experimental psychedelic music style became hugely influential on other musicians such as Jimmy Page and David Bowie. Then we have Nicholas Sand, one of the most prolific and famous underground chemists in history, along with Tim Scully. Nick Sand was responsible for producing over 3 million hits of Orange Sunshine, a brand of LSD that was renowned for its quality and purity in the 60s. He was the first underground chemist to synthesize DMT rather than extracting it from natural sources, and the first person to discover that the DMT freebase could be smoked. His 2 essays on DMT are indispensable for DMT novices and veterans alike. And then we have Maria Sabina, was a Mazatec Cuandera, a healer, a shaman, who served psilocybin mushrooms to R. Gordon Wasson in 1955, the first white man in recorded history to partake in the Mazatec mushroom ritual. Wasson's story caused a sensation when it was published in Life magazine by introducing shrooms to the West. Wasson influenced the psychedelic 1960s and kickstarted the field of ethnomycology. Thousands of spiritual tourists, including Timothy Leary, Bob Dylan, and John Lennon, descended upon Maria Sabina's little village in the following decades, and she came to regret ever offering the divine mushrooms to foreigners. That's interesting, though, too, because I also read that that Gordon Wasson synthesized psilocybin and then brought her a synthetic version, and she actually said, and she took it with him, and she actually said that it would suffice in lieu of not being able to find natural sources, like that it was good enough. But I also am not surprised to hear that she came to regret offering the mushrooms when it became a pop culture thing, and that I'll get to later with the part about was it all a psyop. Neil Cassidy is the next one. Neil Cassidy was a major figure in the Beat generation and the psychedelic movement in the 1960s. He was immortalized in Jack Kerouac's novel On the Road as the character Dean Moriarty, and also features in 2 Grateful Dead songs, as well as Tom Wolfe's Electric Kool-Aid Acid Test. Cassidy was a member of Ken Kesey's Merry Pranksters and the main driver of the bus Further on the first half of its psychedelic-fueled journey from San Francisco to New York. And I will be talking about why can't I think of his name off top? Tim Leary is also part of all that, and I will be talking about Tim Leary in the part about the psyop. Myron Stolaroff was a researcher and author who studied psychedelic psychotherapy. As a founder of a California research group, he oversaw clinical studies with LSD and mescaline that were administered to 350 patients. He also interviewed the influential psychedelic therapist Leo Zeff and published the results in a phenomenal book, The Secret Chief Revealed. Sidney Cohen was an early LSD researcher who first tried the drug in 1955. Expecting an unpleasant experience, he instead found that problems and strivings, the worries and frustrations of everyday life vanished. In their place was a majestic, sunlit, heavenly inner quietude. Time magazine interviewed Cohen and reported his concern that public reaction against oddball antics may set back serious research for many years. These words proved prophetic, as backlash against psychedelics in the 60s and 70s halted their study for some 40 years. That's important for what I'm going to talk about. Cohen also provided the LSD for Aldous Huxley's deathbed trip. Now that's a dramatic exit. Aldous Huxley apparently, I think he had it intravenously injected into him when he was on his deathbed. I'm not sure that I would want to do that. As someone who loves LSD, I think I want to be sober, like totally sober for months, no painkillers, nothing. And hopefully my brain will be able to like do whatever it's supposed to do when I die, and I won't be fucking tripping. I'll have a pure experience of death. Jean Lorrain was a French poet and novelist who embraced a decadent lifestyle. He was an avid drug user, although not necessarily what you would call a psychonaut, and wore makeup later in life to hide effects of years of morphine and ether abuse. Rosenfeld has other psychonaut portraits, including Thomas de Quincey, author of Confessions of an English Opium Eater, the starting point for Western addiction literature, and Jimi Hendrix. And anyways, that one's an interesting one to me because I always thought of a psychonaut as being someone who took psychedelic drugs in particular. And in a way, I guess you could say that all drugs are psychedelic, but there's definitely the hallucinogens, which you would consider to be, that's what you think of when you say psychedelic. But I mean, I will agree that ketamine is an incredibly psychedelic experience. But I don't know if I've had any experience with opiates that I would compare to psychedelia, but maybe it's because I was doing bullshit pharmaceuticals and stuff. I don't know. Maybe it's different when you smoke opium. But anyways, so all these people are people that you can look up to learn about where this stuff is coming from, because it isn't just bullshit from raves. And I mean, so I guess the reason I bring all these people up is because you have shamanism in the world, all over the world, and it's like ancient. It's baked into their traditions, and it's like it's not thought of as taboo or anything. And then you have Western society where we have completely rejected psychedelics, and it goes all the way back to the Catholic Church, like predating Jesus, or not necessarily the Catholic Church, but like the church. I don't was it Catholic? Was there a church before Jesus? Like who were the Pharisees and stuff before Jesus? I know they weren't Catholic, but like the religious institutions before Jesus was there, were like the proto-Christians. They were using psychedelics. Um, and there's a book about it. It's by author Brian Muraresku, Muraresku, The Immortality Key, The Secret History, The Religion with No Name. And it talks about how, I mean, he goes and visits the Vatican, and he gets permission to read books that, like, you literally, like, you or I could not. And he talks about it in the book. He goes over all of it. And then he also gets a tour that probably most likely you or I could not, where he went down into the catacombs of the Vatican and was looking at the frescoes that there's still are frescoes that they're trying to currently restore. Like, and so he's finding evidence down there of these ancient rituals that happened, that would have been happening like when Jesus was, before he became, before he announced himself as the Son of God. Like, it would have been like in the years that he was missing. He was missing for however many years between a boy and when he came back as a man. I think it was like he left at 12 and came back at 33 or something. But anyways, so they were all these different churches that were trying to, that weren't trying to. They had, first of all, they had female priestesses that, or what he thinks, this is what he is putting together by looking at these frescoes and going into these old texts and all the research that it's a fascinating book. It's well worth either getting or listening to on Audible. But he talks about how they had these priestesses that were leading these psychedelic rituals with some kind of wines or beverages that would have been similar to like what they served in Eleusis, the Greeks, the Eleusinian mysteries. So all of this is tied together. And then you had like what was a true patriarchy in the church that said, we're not okay with like these priestesses letting any old guy go on a psychedelic journey and then come back with like, all this whatever. They were like, we need to homogenize this. We need to bring it into one standard. And so that's how the church got so patriarchal, and that's how you had inquisitions and all these other things. Is there was too much chaos with the way that I guess they were trying to take control, and they couldn't do it because too many people were being, quite frankly, liberated by the psychedelic drugs. If the psychedelic experience works, if shamanism works, it's about liberating yourself from the authority of other people and understanding like the mystery of God that exists. And like that is what is the Christian Bible. At the end of the day, God is a mystery. He's unknowable and ineffable. And the Bible tells you to knock. It says knock, and then it says, when you understand, you will go no more out. And it makes me think of these quotes. I heard them myself from I think they're Carl Sagan quotes. Okay, no, maybe he's repeating this. It says it's commonly attributed to physicist Richard Feynman. Keep an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. And because I heard it from Carl Sagan, I always thought he was talking about psychedelics, but obviously if Richard Feynman was a physicist, and he says that, I don't know if that's where it was necessarily meant to be, but I think of it in the psychedelic sense is keep an open mind, but not so open that your brain falls out. I think that's important. And then the other one was it's if you've heard the message, hang up the phone. But I heard Carl Sagan say it. I guess it was originally an Alan Watts quote. But yeah, I originally saw it. And here it's also someone saying that Terrence McKenna has said it. But anyways, this journey into psychedelics is different for everyone, and I think in general, when you think about the history of shamanism and this whole religion with no name, and the way that it's been pushed out of the West, a lot of it has to do with the fact that people, it's like that from that last thing that I read, there were too many people. The word Sidney Cohen, when he said he reported in his concerned public reaction against oddball antics may set back serious research for many years. That is what I think really did happen. And so you had all these people like the merry pranksters that were pushing LSD use through at music festivals, and it was happening very recklessly, and you had all these people that were getting like lost in the sauce, for lack of a better way of putting it. And so like you had this completely unmoored, like ungrounded movement that was devoid of principle or anything to guide it. It was more about rejecting everything and like finding a personal truth, which we could talk about Gnosticism here and proto-Christianity, because there is this idea that James Lindsay puts out all the time, that Gnosticism is a parasite, and this idea of personal truth it comes from Gnosticism and is parasitical. But Gnostics, the original Gnostics, like they were guided by the wisdom of Sophia. Like they understood that there was only certain ways to get a truth that was of a high value. A Gnostic would tell you like that I guarantee you Gnostics would tell you if you were an ideologue. And like Gnosticism itself, those principles, they are the wisdom of Sophia that's basically the Holy Ghost from the Bible. I mean, there is this perfect wisdom presented in the Bible by Jesus that is supposed to allow you as an individual to reveal truth in a way that is good. And it's like, it's never been about just having an idea and saying, oh, that's my personal truth. It's always been about going on a journey where you check what you're experiencing against your chosen principles that you have faith in. And so the process of revealing truth is much more complicated than just going out and having LSD trips. And that's probably why I have no idea how I came to think the way that I do, or if I'm even right. But in any case, I think that this all results in like what's happening in the West is if you look at what we're doing, it's like we are technically all going on this unguided journey, right? And that is actually true shamanism. It's like we live in a different jungle. We extract our psychedelics from different sources. We come from a different culture. We have different problems, but yet the journey that we're on is the same. Like we're trying to understand the modern world and technology, and we're trying to get there without a master guiding us. There is no master to guide us into the new world. Like it's our job to try to figure out what it all means. And as long as everyone defers to the authority of dead people or people who they consider smarter than themselves, like that process is going to be defunct. Like I would already say that process has already become pretty defunct, because you look at the way that academic institutions use consensus to claim authority over entire fields of study, and it's the same in the church too. It's like the divinity schools, they claim authority over academic consensus of what the Bible means, And it is not free thinking. It is blind faith in other people's authority. It is not free thinking for yourself. It is not a sense of intuitive knowing. And that's the difference. It's like, did you believe someone when they said 2 + 2 is 2, and you just always put 4 without thinking? Or did you learn how to count blocks until you understood what 2 represented? And then did you learn how to put blocks together until you understood what 4 represented? And then did you know in your intuitive sense and feeling that 2 + 2 = 4? It is a process of revealing personal knowledge that is guided by logic. And that's the thing, is depending on what your operating system is, depending on what your principles are, your logic, and you might seem perfectly logic. Like, you might be able to go from your principles through a chain of logic to a conclusion that seems rational. But if your principles are bad in the first place, then you inevitably will produce some sort of pathology. Like, you will not be free to act in the world. And so anyways, I do think that that's the journey I've been on, really, and that all of us are on. And I do think that it's a shame that so many of the progressive, like, liberals here in the West they're the ones that seem to think, at music festivals and stuff, that they're picking up the torch here. And in reality, they are the oddballs. They are the antics. This idea of rejection of all the principles that the West was founded on, and then replacing them with fragmented pieces of other spiritual practices and other people's cultures, and saying that it's something that's more pure and real and acceptable, is just it seems wrong to me. And it doesn't seem like it's what personal liberation is about. It's, again, deferring to the authority of other people. You're saying, these people have the right image, they're saying the right things, and like this is going to be my truth. I'm going to adopt their truth as my truth. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't take other people, like, anytime that you experience something that you like, that you shouldn't integrate it into your truth. But I am saying that when you base your entire identity off of confirming your thoughts through the authority of other people, that you haven't achieved the goal of psychedelics, of having a free mind, or the goal of Christianity, in my opinion. Like, you haven't achieved it if you're still deferring to the authority of the church. Like, it's really interesting. And now I guess I'll get into the next part, the final part, which is was the psychedelic movement in the 60s and the counterculture a psyop. And the reason that I wonder that is because, well, first of all, I didn't think of this on my own. One of my friends suggested to me that because I was so infatuated with Terence McKenna, and he brought up the idea that Terence McKenna might have been working for intelligence agencies, and same with like Timothy Leary and all them. And you think to yourself, like, okay, well, we now have the declassified documents. We know MK Ultra was real. Like, we know that the government was using psychedelic drugs to try to control people's thoughts, like brainwash them. And it's funny because the Timothy Leary, his saying was, let's see, what was it? Tune in, turn off. Oh, turn on, tune in, drop out. Turn on, tune in, drop out. And that is what started the movement, right? But because the fact that everything is marketed in the image of like what it means to be liberal and to be like a progressive liberal type, it's like they don't understand now that it's turned into like turn off, tune in, and blindly support. Like, that is, I mean, the liberal progressives now are the party of war, and they don't think for themselves, and they always defer to authority. And so it's just really interesting to me that you had this movement that was the merry pranksters. It was the epitome of what I lost that other thing I was looking at. I'll find it right now. Hold on. It's right here. Sidney Cohen. It's the epitome of the public reaction against oddball antics. Like that is Tim Leary and the movement that he started is the epitome of that, of what he was saying. And they are the people that set psychedelic research back. So it's like you turned psychedelics into this underground counterculture where it was nothing but oddball antics, unmoored from principle or guiding logic, and you set them free for decades to just create this, I don't even know what abomination. It is, if it is purely based on being the opposite of the people that they don't like. It isn't generative of anything wholesome or healthy. It's just rejection. And so I don't know. I have no idea. Like I did go through all that too, the rejection phase, and it made me resentful, and I have no idea how psychedelics or how my thought process led me to wanting to re-understand Christianity and the West. But my psychedelic journey actually didn't really mean anything to me until I went back and tried to understand my own culture, my own religion. I forgave my parents. When I was just deep in Deep Space Nine, like just going further and further out, and who knows, just thinking that I was coming up with these great ideas, like it was meaningless. And not only that, it was like turning into something that I would either have to look at as having no value, that destroyed my life and wasted many years, or I would have to go like all the way off the rails, and just be one of those people that like lives in Venice Beach and is just like, yeah, man, I'm so far out. Like I just don't do the society thing or whatever. I don't know, but everything, I truly knew that I was finally thinking for myself when my thoughts were more important than other people's approval. And that came from that thing, being able to think for myself and deconstruct a lot of the things that were causing me to be causing me to be stuck in that paradigm of just rejection. And if you listen to like my testimonial, when I talk about like seeing myself in the mirror, and things like that, it's like that was all stuff that played into this. But anyways, so I do wonder. It's like you look at Terence McKenna, you look at Timothy Leary, and you look at what the movement that they started has turned into, and I can't help but wonder if it's true that it was a psyop. I mean, the left now is the party of war, the party of the establishment, and I don't know. It was like the one thing that had the potential of like destroying the pharmaceutical industry in many aspects, or revolutionizing the pharmaceutical industry as pertaining to mental health. The one thing that potentially could actually get people to think for themselves rather than be plugged into the TV, deferring to the authority of the leaders, got maligned as being hippie debauchery and the same thing as any other drug, like heroin or speed. And so I think that it could be true. Like I think that it is definitely I need to find the podcasts and hear the guy that explains exactly why he feels this way. I guess I could tell you guys. Maybe I can. I don't know. My computer runs super slow when I'm streaming. It's literally hard to like even click stuff. So the website is Logos Media, and so there's one video called Terrence McKenna admitted MK Ultra agent, and then he said you should check out there's a series called Laying the Dead to Rest, and then the one that he really recommended about it is apparently behind the paywall, which is why I haven't watched it yet, but I'm thinking about subscribing just to watch it. But he says the Hans Utter series, he has like 3 to 4 interviews with him about music, mind control, and all of that psychedelic movement, I guess, is what that's going to be going into. So yeah, I mean, I think it's worth looking into because I mean, I'm searching for capital T truth, and I see people with ulterior motives all over the place. And with Terrence McKenna, I'd like to believe that even if he was involved in MK Ultra and stuff, like when you listen to him talk, it's like he was really trying to, I think he was trying to play, if anything, I think he was probably trying to play the people in the government. And I think he was speaking to truth, but trying to do it in a way that perhaps they just thought, he's helping them spread nonsense or something. I don't know. So I do need to look more into that because Terrence McKenna is one of my heroes, and psychedelia, music festivals, all of it is really meaningful to me and helped me save my life. But when I look at all the people that are still lost in the sauce and getting on harder drugs, and their whole lives are based in rejection, they simply aren't getting it. And so I don't know, I hope that maybe through even my channel, if the right people hear me, we can have opportunities to have more conversations about this. I really think that psychedelics could be huge for a lot of people. I mean, and MDMA, ketamine, LSD, mushrooms, DMT, all of it. You can go on erowid.org, EROWID, and you can learn a lot on that website, just reading people's personal testimonial experiences. People do all kinds of drug reports that are very interesting. And then there's also a website called DMT Nexus, I think it's .me. Oh, it's DMT-nexus.me, DMT-nexus.me. So Erowid and DMT Nexus are both resources that you can go read on and learn from other people's personal experiences. And all those psychonauts and the books that I mentioned at the beginning are also stuff you can read and learn from. But at the end of the day, it's like, again, I just truly believe that the psychedelic experiences are not supposed to be informed by other people's by other people's reality. The whole point in my mind of the psychedelic experience is to learn how to not defer to authority. And I think when you look at our culture and you look like, why are there so many aspects? Terrence McKenna talks about this. Why are there so many like neotinistic adults? And neoteny means that you retain traits from like being a baby or a child into your adulthood. And then you look at what we cut out. We cut out the psychedelic rituals from our society, from popular culture, and we maligned them. But you look at other cultures and it's like the coming of age experience, whether you're getting your hands bit by bullet ants or whether you are taking a psychedelic dose and having to walk home for 2 days out of the jungle, or whether you are jumping off a platform hoping that a vine won't snap. Our culture is missing that. And you look at the people that do become good adults, almost all of them have overcome serious trauma or things in their lives that made them learn how to think for themselves, like they had no other choice. And then you see like there's these two different types of adults. There's like, I don't know, there's people that, you know, the minute you see them, like they have like an aura about them, and you're like, yeah, that person is like, you know, that person gets shit done, and that person knows what they want and how they feel. And I don't know, it's completely different than these like wishy-washy, unopinionated, will fall for anything because stand for nothing, so they'll fall for anything type people that make up our society. It's like they just want a gold star on the calendar for the day, and that's it. So I think that modern shamanism in the West is probably the key to us transcending a lot of our problems, because like why is it that politicians can manipulate? Why is it that mass media can manipulate? Why is it that ideology can become so corrosive and can capture people and destroy their lives, or just completely transform their reality in a way that isn't necessarily the best thing for them or for their families? And so it's like learning how to think for yourself. And it comes from the Christian Bible. This is why you adore Jesus Christ. Jesus Christ taught you how to live in a way that you had to defer to no one other than God. And that's that. Like, if you understand morality and you understand how to treat other people, and you understand the difference between like debauchery and ideology that's meant to trick you into becoming a slave to vice, and the difference between virtue and things that are attempting to liberate you from vice, like that is the key to moving forward in the addict's life, and I think for our society at large. So, with that, I think I'm inviting people, whether or not they actually go and use psychedelics themselves, I'm inviting them to read books, study, learn about the history of how psychedelics have been useful, from whether it's to tribal societies or the mysteries of Eleusis, and the modern, Western, the Enlightenment came from the mysteries of Eleusis. Like, the Enlightenment was due to, I guess, coffee and fucking psychedelics, bro. But let's stop being so silly. Let's stop pretending that that because we defer to authority that we no longer need to think for ourselves, and that we can just be happy and brain dead and mindless. I mean, and that really, it's like for a group of people, all my peers in the rave community and in the psychedelic community and the music festival community, it's like to consider the fact that they consider themselves open-minded free thinkers when they are so jaded by ideology that they can't even have a conversation with their own dad. It's like, you guys have lost the plot. I'm sorry. Anyways, that's my morning video. I'm going to get ready for work. Oh, and by the way, it's been 3 days of not smoking weed anymore too. I I decided that the way that I use marijuana is irresponsible. Like, I started using it as a crutch when I quit drinking, because I had tried and failed so many times to quit drinking, or to go cold turkey and just be a sober person, and like have all these lists where I was just excelling and exceeding in the world, and on the road to being like an elite CEO or some shit. And for me, like, I had to dial all that back, and so I allowed myself to keep smoking weed and things like that, and I allowed myself to keep eating out fast food, and I didn't give myself a hard time if I got horny and needed to watch porn and masturbate. But like, I wasn't going on apps like trying to meet people for casual sex. I wasn't I was trying to drink green smoothies and have healthy meals when I could. And I didn't really. The only time I quit smoking weed was when I worked as an RADT at an inpatient drug rehabilitation facility, and you can see my video, sobriety industrial complex is whack, to learn more about that. But I had quit smoking weed for 2 months, and I never pissed clean once. I guess, I had been smoking puff and tough since from 14 to 30, and I was smoking like rosin, like dabs, fucking like multiple times throughout the day. So all I could imagine is like, when you look at like, this is my old dab rig. I hadn't cleaned it in a while since the last time I smoked. But like, you think about how nasty that looks, and it's like all that fucking dab resin from smoking dabs every day, is that just like coating my lungs, and like my body can't really process it, so I just have to like wait for it to slowly work its way out of me, or I don't even know what, like it dissolves slowly into my bloodstream. I have no idea what's going on, but I have no idea how I didn't pee clean once over 2 months. But I had to quit that job anyways, because my reality was different than my expectations, and I started smoking weed again immediately, because my emotions were so fucked up by everything that I had went through in order to try and pursue that job, that I was like, yeah, I need to smoke weed again. And it's been about a year since then, and now I've been doing jiu-jitsu for the past 2 years. I've been cooking for myself a lot more. I've been way more on point with my hydration, like without even using lists. It's just all starting to like fall into place, and now I even feel I'm ready to start making lists again. And it's like, maybe rather than being an unfair judge, it'll be like a motivator. But yeah, it's I don't know, I forgot what I'm even talking about. I'm just rambling. But yeah, it's a good thing, I think, to learn to think for yourself. I think psychedelics can assist in that. I don't think they're necessarily I don't think you necessarily have to use them, but I think there's probably very few people that just through the process of like reading and meditating and self-reflection can have the same types of realizations that you have on psychedelics. And the thing is it's not guaranteed. Like, if you take a psychedelic and you're not in the right headspace, or you don't know how to interpret a bad trip, or I don't know, they can be harmful. Like, it might do the opposite. It might make you worse. So like, it's not, life is hard, and figuring out whether or not you want to just be a brain dead ideologue that considers themselves like, fancy because they do all this weird shit, or you want to I don't even know what, but there are so many ways that it could be harmful and destructive. And it's like, you really need to, at the heart of your journey, have guiding principles that you have faith in for good reason. And if you can't explain what you believe without contradicting yourself, then you probably need to think deeper about your principles and about your beliefs. But anyways, again, I'm encouraging people to go grab books, read up on this stuff, learn about the history of the U.S. government, MK Ultra, and psychedelics in general. Learn about their history in tribes, and then think about our responsibility in the West. We claim that we're individual sovereigns, yeah, we can't even think. We can't think without deferring to some authority figure. Um, and again, if you don't understand the Bible in a way that leads you to believe it's about being an individual sovereign, I don't know. I'd go back to the drawing board there too, because uh, you know, morality isn't meant to take your sovereignty. It's meant to give it to you. So I wish everyone the best of luck today. If you're still using, I hope today can be your first your first day sober, and remember what Yeshua said. You are the light of the world, and if we have too many burnouts, then we will never be the glowing city on the hill. So it's incumbent upon all of us to figure this out. Cheers.